Hello and welcome to yet another edition of my Red Dwarf review series, the all and ever popular in my imagination. So this is your own TV Hub official one, and basically we're just going to get right to it. This is the fourth episode from science fiction sitcom Red Dwarf from series 1, and it was first broadcast on British television on channel BBC 2 on the 7th of March 1988. This episode's theme is religion. Atheist Rimmer succumbs to a passionate belief in super race of aliens with the technology to give him a new body, while Lister reflects on his role as god of the cat people. Written by Rob Grant and Doug Naylor and directed by Ed Bye, this episode was considered to be one of the weakest from the first series. Like the previous episode, the episode was remastered along with the rest of the first three series. In 1998, there's just an extra bit to bring the episode up to a standard suitable for international broadcast. So in episode 4 of Red Dwarf, we get another SOS distress call from Holly, but this time we get a little bit of information relating to the last episode, that Dave just pretended but actually failed to pass his chef's exam, while pretending, as we've seen in the last episode, that he actually did. In the drive room, Rimmer wants access to the crew's confidential report. He listens to Holly as he says David Lister, and third technician on board Red Dwarf, and that he requested such leaves on no less than 500 occasions for diarrhea, and he left his previous job as a supermarket trolley assistant after 10 years, saying he did not want to get tied down with one job, with Rimmer laughing at this. Rimmer thinks and then decides that he wants to hear his own record, which states from the captain that Aaron Rimmer, second technician on board Red Dwarf, and that if a job's worth doing, if a job's good, it'll be worth doing, and if a job isn't worth doing, give it to Rimmer, who constantly fails the engineering exam, and with some other bad comments, which makes Rimmer a little. It would be an understatement to say that he was angry at this comment. This makes him hate Holly indeed, and we see that, you know what, Rimmer just really, he just shows his real hatred for pretty much everyone that doesn't give him what he wants in any way. So, after he gives up on this, Holly says that they are picking up an unidentified object. Meanwhile, Lister relaxes in his own quarters with a toaster joke as he somehow talks to the coaster, whatever. Meanwhile, Rimmer comes in and sees Lister sniffing a cat dictionary. Lister takes Rimmer's clothes and wears them, and Rimmer gets angry about this as well, but Lister says that, he could take his own clothes, and he doesn't need them. Well, Rimmer cares so much about nothing here. According to Lister, all the unidentified objects are usually just rocks, and he's very cynical about the whole, what Rimmer feels, who believes that it could be something weird in space, while Lister is like, well, there's nothing else out here, it's just us. Rimmer is annoyed. Kat does a fancy roll out of the tunnels or whatever, and he is stylish as ever, just taking over the screen with his presence. As the unidentified object is being brought in by Holly, Lister believes it is a pod, and meets up with Kat, who gives him a book with pictures in it that Kat basically explains is basically their beliefs of the cat kind. It is understood that this is basically how the cat kind have misinterpreted all the things that have happened with Lister and Frankenstein, and Lister believes he is their god, because Cat, although misinterpreting that their god is Cloister, and basically he went into stasis for 3 million years, and you can sort of get where the rest of the story is going. Rimmer, meanwhile, is excited that the pod has arrived, and what he thinks is a something abnormal from space, while Rimmer believes it is a pod of another life form, an alien life form. After 18 weeks with Lister, Rimmer believes that he is superior and he wants to see someone else apart from Lister, and also we talked about it being better than Lister. After a bit of deduction, Lister figures out that it is actually a Red Dwarf garbage podcast, and Holly didn't tell Rimmer for the laugh, as he obviously feels a bit sadistic towards Rimmer. So Rimmer, still believing in the unidentified object, is actually excited and determined to find out for once. In the middle of the night, he explains to Lister and tells him about these things that cannot be explained are because of aliens. While Lister obviously taking the exact opposite approach, believing that there is nothing like this happening, and Rimmer believes that no god but aliens. Lister's plan has become the cat's idea of heaven in the book, and what cat knows about. For thousands of years, the cat kind fought between the colour of the hats, as Lister learns, and what they should be, and this is where a whole bunch of conflict arose, and wars that went on for thousands of years. So the survivors made a truce, and built a ark which they left Red Dwarf in search of Fuchsia, which is their idea of heaven, and is Fiji, which was part of Lister's plan. Lister is shocked at everything that is said in this history that Holly tells him about, and using religion to kill each other, Lister is horrified by the suffering, and he doesn't want to be their god for once. And Rimmer gets very weird about this, and doesn't understand why he wouldn't want to be their god. In the next scene, Lister starts to look for Cat over the ship with a bit of locations, and finally we get a scene of Cat who is in the supply deck, where another dying cat is deep down in the ship with them. The old cat is glad to see Lister, who arrives after having no hope, believing there is no god, and that they should burn his sacred red hat. They learn that the crippled and the idiots were left behind and were not put on the ark, which departed to find Fuchsia. And Lister tells them about heaven, about the Fuchsia heaven, and Cat doesn't care at all, the other cat, not the old dying cat. Finally, Lister opens up the pod, and alarmed Rimmer watches to see what happens, while Rimmer finally figures it out as the closing credits roll. That is just a garbage pot. Oh yeah, and in that cat scene, the old cat is now happy and says it's the happiest time in his life that Lister has done this for him, and he dies. So Lister, being just, great at making up stuff here, and shows a nice side to Lister in quite a sweet moment, actually. So now let's get to the overview. So episode 4, Waiting for God, was... what can I say about the episode? I actually quite enjoyed this episode. In general, I think I could put this up here with saying that I probably prefer this over Balance of Power of yesterday's. The last episode, maybe. But those two really tied in my mind as being close contenders. And so far, these episodes being sort of middle to not bad in any way, I don't think, but not obviously of series 1. They don't rank up to the top 3. So far, the end Future Echo seeming a bit better. But again, after not seeing this episode for a while, I am pleasantly surprised by what's inside it, and I think that although there's 2 different stories going on, they're quite funny indeed, and just really getting the writers to have fun with the story and see some goofy side to the Red Dwarf series. The whole concept of waiting for God can either refer to Rimmer's beliefs in God, if I think so, and the fact that he believes in aliens, and he's not waiting for any God at all, and the fact that the whole of catkind have basically made all their thoughts about Lister being their god. It was a bold step to take in the whole Red Dwarf lore, I think, and really intriguing to see Cat's own backstory and everything, to do with that sort of thing. Cat in this episode was not my favourite at all. Showing style and all, but you know, towards the end, he just he got worse for me. I think for Cat to be in the story, he just acted really badly, in my opinion. Except for giving Lister that book, and sort of the only bit of that episode. I think that I really enjoyed that part of the story, though. Him talking and communicating with Lister. Lister performing quite well in this episode, just in terms of what he does was quite enjoyable in all costs. Lister once again being a bit of a hero in this one, and Lister actually showing interest in other people's characters and stories, unlike Rimmer, who just take a different approach altogether. And towards the end of the episode, I was actually really surprised at how angry he got with Lister. So obviously that sort of personality, that side of the story, that conflict is not improving at all. The main conflict is not improving. I don't think it's developed any much at all. They've just got to know a little about each other, and they're two separate characters that develop, but the whole relationship between them hasn't developed, while the relationship between Lister and Cat has developed, and Cat not developing as much, and Holly being a bit more developed here, getting a few more say here, and becoming a little more part of the story as we go on. We get some funny stuff as usual, but nothing that really made me hilarious to see. I mean, the whole directing and style and the visuals were really good, I have to say. Some good exterior shots. The music was superb, I have to say. Some great music in there. Some good bunk scenes in general. And yeah, the Red Dwarf lore with the cats. Good. And Rimmer quite funny, actually. A few laughs. Good writing. Well, meh writing. Everything else seemed to fit in place pretty well. Hopefully this will lead to some more bigger and bolder adventures for the crew, as we sort of get a backstory, and we will continue to get backstories for other characters, and finally start to develop into what will become a great show.